when you are called to do something, it's for a reason. And I have said to entrepreneurs, listen, if you have a desire, you have what you need inside of you to accomplish that desire. And in fact, it's your duty to pursue that, because in the pursuit, not only do you change yourself for the better, but you bring along all of these people with you. And that's back to kind of maybe full circle from the beginning, is your impact magnifies. And I had a picture on my desk for the longest time. It was a picture of this lion with this like gorgeous mane looking down at a lion cub. And the quote was, "I thought about giving up until I noticed who was watching." And, for parents, I think that resonates, but for adults and for leaders and for managers, people are watching. The generation younger than you and 2 generations younger than you need you to succeed. And they need to see proof that it's possible. And maybe it's because I'm 40 and whatever, I'm getting older and all that, but I want more people my age to recognize their responsibility to show our younger generations that it is possible to be generous and successful. It is possible to pursue a goal and be fulfilled, even when it's hard. And it is possible to do hard things, and you are capable.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, where it is our mission to help you to rise above fear and realize your ultimate potential in leadership and life. I'm your host, Adam Hill, and it is my goal to share with you the human side of high performance. My guests share their experience with fear, anxiety, struggle, challenge, and most importantly, despite all of it, how they rose above it to achieve incredible results. So, if you're ready to rise up, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to Flow Over Fear. Thanks for being here. I have a great guest today. Her name is Amanda Moriuchi, and she is the CEO of AppIt Ventures, one of the most successful female-owned tech development firms in the world. With nearly 2 decades of experience working with premier startups, Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, and nonprofits, she has a passion for helping her clients harness the benefits of technology to improve the impact of their organizations. With hundreds of clients and nearly 1,000 custom applications to her credit, her insights have been featured in numerous major media outlets, including Forbes, Yahoo Finance, and more. She has been recognized by the Denver Business Journal as a 40 under 40 leader and as a back-to-back finalist for the annual Apex CEO of the Year Awards, and for the company's My Colorado app designation as a project of the year by the Colorado Technology Association. Her company is a top 1,000 global company as rated by Clutch. So she's got it going on in the business world, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, Amanda. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Adam. It's so good to be here.
Well, it's really, really great to have you, and I'm grateful that you're here because when I hear about the 40 under 40 people that achieve that, and that is incredible to me because there's so much growth that happens to become a CEO and a leader and someone with that kind of experience, expertise. Can you kind of walk us through how where you started from and what got you on this path to leadership?
Yeah. So I went to CU Boulder, go Buffs. And I thought at that time I wanted to be working for one of the big 5 accounting firms, which I always laugh now because in my role working with numbers, thank God I have an incredible CFO to help me. But that is not my passion. It never was. I just did it because I thought it was the path to take. But I'm grateful that I had that as a goal because I really exposed myself to a wide variety of business learning when I was younger. And my first job out of college, I worked for a home builder. I sold new homes. And I joke around now that in a sense, it is similar to retail sales because you're selling a physical product to people that come to your store and it's a big purchase, but it is kind of like retail sales. And I got beautifully trained by one of the most incredible dynamic leaders I've ever had the privilege of working with. And I think that piece is really what set me on my trajectory, right? I got beautifully trained. I fell in love with sales, and I really dedicated myself to that craft. And so when I moved into technology sales, I struggled big time because I went from B2C sales, physical product in person, to essentially B2B services over the phone. And I was selling to directors of IT, CIOs, CTOs, and knowing what I know now about, the science of communication, the psychology of communication, my enthusiasm was probably the worst thing to bring to a CIO or a CTO or a director of IT or an ops guy. And I struggled and teaching myself how to better communicate to a new type of person, a new type of service, and doing it in a different way. I think that's what set me up for where I am today on the leadership side. So I would say, my early management, getting beautifully trained and really falling in love with what I do, that was the key tipping point for me.
That's interesting. Yeah. And so regarding that psychology of communication and the different approaches, as you say, why was it so much more challenging to approach the CIOs or from the perspective of you coming from that home sales background? What was the difference there?
Yeah. So selling new home sales, it's fun for the buyer when they see somebody getting excited about a particular feature. Like I remember being excited about how we would seal the ductwork to make sure that a lot of the warm air that the furnace was pushing through the vent, actually, it was more efficient. So this was, 20 years ago. So at the time, having a high efficiency home was something to get really excited about. And I was rewarded by that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus when you're over the phone talking to an ops person or a tech leader who's like, hey, I just want to know if what you guys are going to do is going to help me or if it's going to get me fired in 6 months. And in that conversation, enthusiasm is ill-placed, I think. And it made me sound like I didn't know what I was talking about when I did. It's just I didn't use enthusiasm properly. It makes me cringe, actually, to think back these poor people through. So
yeah, well, if you're not cringing at the person you once were in one of your first jobs, then you're probably doing it wrong. That's the right way to look at it. But yeah, so I guess the lesson there was that different approaches for different industries, different types of people for especially for the sales. So it sounds like more expertise was the higher point rather than enthusiasm, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That makes sense. And you mentioned kind of going back to your college days when you were looking at approaching the accounting industry. Mm-hmm. And you said something interesting there, which was that wasn't the path that you necessarily wanted, but it was the path you thought you needed to take. Yeah. Can you expand on that a little bit? Because I think there's a lot of people that could relate to that. And maybe they took that path further and now they feel stuck.
Yeah. So for me, I was joking with my CFO last week. We were talking about funny things about you in your childhood that portend who you were going to be as an adult. And so for me, I held the record for Girl Scout sales for a long time, like 10 years. No one could touch me. I laugh about that now because I truly believe I was born to be a salesperson. I just think the balance of my personality and how I think about things and how I move through the world and what gets me excited, sales is the career for me. And, when I was going to school, CU at the time didn't have a degree in selling. And I should look this up. I don't even know if they do even today. And so for me, because there wasn't a degree in what I knew I wanted to do, I needed to make it seem like I had a brain, right? And I do, obviously, but I had invested in my education, right? And so the closest thing to sales in my mind was marketing. But I also wanted to show to potential employers that I could analytically solve problems, right? And so accounting made sense for me. And ultimately, studying both really gave me that balance to pursue sales with a passion. And so, I think that's why I was willing to take the path down accounting, because it was serious, right? It was a reputable profession, and it is, but so is sales. And I wish more universities would teach that. Because sales is an honorable profession. You're solving problems and you're caring for people. And I wish that more young people were taught the concepts of abundance and problem solving and communication, all of the things that go into making a successful salesperson. I think that those are all the things that go into making a successful person, right? And on your question about what would it take to switch if you find yourself stuck, I have a dear friend who is working with people in that same scenario where she's helping people shepherd from switching one industry to another. It's a very specific industry. And how she does it is she encourages people to first take an assessment of where you're at, right? What are the things you like? What are the things you don't like? For example, if you like the general skills of your job, but you want to make a little bit more by switching industries, then figure out how much a little bit more is, quantify it, and then start to figure out back into it. If I want to end up in a different industry, what are the steps that I need to take to get there? Not unlike deciding, hey, I want to go from, the city to the mountains. You pull up Google Maps, you figure out what traffic is like, you pick your best route based on the experience you want to have, and then you execute. It's very similar with deciding or choosing out of being stuck. First, you decide where you want to go, and then you build the game plan and start out on your path. I know I make it sound way simpler than it is, because buried in there is head trash and self-doubt and detours and things taking way longer than you ever expected. But I also think that we have the ability to overcome those things as they come up.
Yeah, that's the interesting point. I mean, it is simple. All of this stuff of personal development, of finding our direction, finding our passions, it's all simple stuff, but we're all getting in our own ways. I mean, do you feel that way, that we're just getting in our way? When the stuff in our head, the garbage and all that kind of stuff just makes it not easy for us?
I think it's head trash. I also think it's a gap in expectation versus reality, right? Mm-hmm. Like we all set out on a journey expecting a certain way of flowing through that journey. And most often our expectations are wrong. Like at the core, it was a hypothesis or a guess. But for whatever reason, we get emotionally attached to our expectation and then beat ourselves up that we guessed wrong. I mean, I think when you describe it like that, you're like, man, why am I beating myself up over a guess that was wrong?
Yeah.
So I think there's a difference between respecting the process and demanding the outcome. You can't control the outcome. We all know that. Mm-hmm. It's just guess what you think the outcome might be, deliver your best effort, and the chips will fall where they will. And I think you have to be okay with that.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I know that, and I love the expectations versus reality clarification, because that's something I know that we all struggle with. I've struggled with that too. And, I ask a lot of these questions selfishly because I've been through a lot of that, where I feel like I have to go down this direction or this path, and this is the way. But then, things happen and things shift and they flow in a different way. So I know, when we have kids, for example, how do we teach our kids to navigate that kind of stuff with expectations versus reality?
So I have, this, Adam, I have 3 boys, 16, 14, and 4. So any well wishes that you can send my way.
I'm sending all of those well wishes.
But my 4-year-old, I watch him, especially now, because he's going through immense growth.
Mm-hmm.
And it saddens me a little bit because he inherited this from me, I think. So, we don't have to get into epigenetics, but I do think on the epigenetic side, I passed on to him a little bit of my, I think my burden, where I have higher expectations than what is reality, right? So for me, I always expect of myself that I am going to be really good at something the first time I do it. It's just my burden that I carry, and my son carries that now too. And how I do this with him is I get down on his level and I make eye contact with him. Mm-hmm. And I ask him to do a dragon breath, basically, where I ask him to take a huge deep breath and blow it out and growl and stick his tongue out at the same time, which makes him laugh, but it also really resets his breathing, and it gets him to focus on me. And I get to say to him, listen, you aren't built for perfection. You're built to try. And that's my favorite motherhood lesson that I'm sharing with my kids right now. And, I'll let you know how it goes. Ask me in a couple months, because Bennett's learning how to ride a pedal bike right now. And he gets super discouraged and frustrated, and he doesn't realize how fast he's learning. And I look at him as a mom, and I want him to be as proud of him as I am, because I can see his progress. He just can't, because you can't see the label from inside the bottle. And so, when I think about how I am with Bennett, it makes me really demand from my own self to be around people that can hold me accountable, but also remind me how far I've come. And so, reflect back to you the label that you can't see from inside.
Yeah, that's such a great visual to that if we're in the bottle, we can't see the label. I love that visual. And I want to repeat what you just said, because that's so important, that you're not built, especially for the perfectionists out there, which I can relate to that. We aren't built for perfection. We're built to try. And, trying, that's where progress comes from. So I can't see into the future, but I can imagine that's going to go really, really well for your family. And you mentioned also kind of when you made that shift into sales and you started selling new homes, that you had beautiful training. I'd love to hear what that looked like. Like as a leader, what does beautiful training look like, and how can we emulate that?
Gosh, so I would say, so my boss, her name is Natasha. Have you ever been around somebody that just exudes excellence? Like, it's just like seeping out of their pores.
Yeah, it's annoying, isn't it? No.
So annoying. And this woman, I think the biggest thing is it was who she was, right? She was so dedicated to excellence that she just, with every action, whether it was small or large, it was executed with precision, not perfection, but precision. And she demanded the same, right? And so from her and being around her and kind of that collection of people where we all kind of grew up together under her training, right? That's why I say today, excellence and mediocrity can't cohabitate, because mediocrity in the face of excellence will just kind of shy away or leave. It's really uncomfortable. So, or they choose to level up and become that, because for some people, excellence is intoxicating. And so if you're a leader, I believe that, first of all, you are not entitled to be a leader. Just because, you've been in the industry long enough and you have a ton of experience and it doesn't mean that you get to automatically lead a group of people. I believe in order to be a leader, you have to be worthy of that. And in order to be worthy of leadership, you have to be excellent. You have to demand more from yourself than everyone around you. And you have to lead by example, because you can say whatever, right? But if it doesn't align with your behavior and your character, then it falls flat, right? You have no credibility. And so how Natasha beautifully trained me is, first and foremost, she was excellent. She walked the talk. And because she was excellent and because she exuded that when she spoke, I listened. And I think beyond all of that, Natasha really dedicated herself to organizing the training and getting really clear on, okay, this is the outcome we're striving for. This is the behavior that I think you need to do in order to get to this outcome the quickest. But listen, if you have a better idea and you're willing to try it, share it with me and let's figure it out, right? So there's no attachment to my way of doing things. It's the way of doing things to get to the outcome the quickest with minimal cost, right? I think that's how she viewed it. And that's how she changed my life. And thinking about the ripple out effect of that, right? So she taught me how to lead, and now I lead my own team, and I lead my team in the way she taught me. And with any luck, my teammates then go out as their careers progress and continue to magnify that goodness.
That's powerful. Just walking the talk. And I'd be curious to know where Natasha is now, because it sounds like she had that passion. She knew where she was going and has probably, worked her way quite a ways up too.
She absolutely has. She's a division president for a national home builder now. So wow. She stayed in that industry and is dominating. I mean, and her division is one of the top. I mean, she's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah. Well, when you can lead to the extent that you are yourself training champions, that is, that's a powerful leader right there. And absolutely. I mean, it sounds like that you're doing the same thing now, which is incredible. And as a leader who does that, who walks the talk, who leads by example, who's constantly demonstrating that they're worthy and that they demand much of themselves, I could see that there may be a balance there that you have to strike, right? I mean, so how do you avoid the trap of burning yourself out or becoming overwhelmed by just like the constant, overwhelm?
To be honest, Adam, I haven't found that balance, right? Yeah. And I've heard this said before. It's in the title of your podcast, right? There is no such thing as balance; it's flow, right? And I honestly think that I was sold a bill of goods with the whole concept of work-life balance, because my work is my life and it's an element of my life, but there's no separation there, right? Because I bring who I am as a person to my work, and my work affects, the energy that I bring into my family, into my friendships, into my home. As much as I wish that I could sit here and say, oh, I have a barrier there, or I compartmentalize, I don't. And I think that's what's made me an effective leader is I'm a whole human and I bring my full messy self to every situation that I'm in. And, candidly, I struggle with burnout. And the reason why I struggle with burnout is for a very specific reason. Like, I spend a lot of time investing in personal growth and professional growth. That's one of the reasons why I'm such a huge fan of yours and your podcast, because, you focus so much on growing your listener group, right? So we find an area of improvement that might free up some of our time, as an example. And rather than storing up my time, I backfill it with more work, because there's always more work to be done, especially if you're in pursuit of a heavy goal. And I get burned out and I struggle a lot of times. And when I do that, it takes me longer to come back to baseline. I'm older now. I'm not in my 20s anymore. And I will say, failure is not an option. And so it's I just have to let that burnout pass. But I don't have a life of balance. I have a life of fulfillment, but it's certainly not balanced.
Well, I think you summarized it so well right there with you don't have a life of balance, but you have a life of fulfillment. I mean, we're all filling these 24 hours a day with something. I mean, that's just the matter of it. And for some of us, it might be Netflix. It might be, laying on the couch reading a book. It might be, whatever, or it might be just working really hard. But knowing that you're fulfilled is important. I agree with you. I've never found that balance either. And the balance thing, I heard it best actually in a recent interview that I did with Aaron Velke, who was a guest a few weeks ago. At this point, it'll probably be a couple months ago. But the one thing he said is that he doesn't look at balance. He looks for harmony, which I loved that reframe. Yeah. Does that kind of resonate with what you're saying a bit? Like as far as finding the things that fill you up and give you that fulfillment and trying to work them into your life?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the work that I do in my job sharpens the skills that I use as a parent. It sharpens the skills that I use as a wife. It sharpens the skills that I use as a friend and vice versa, right? So parenting my children has made me a better person, but it's also made me a better leader because the concepts that I'm instilling in my children are the very same concepts that I want to share with my teammates and my customers and my community. And so it is harmony, and it's one infects the other. And I'm okay with that. I think that that's honorable.
Yeah, that's a great point, because if you're I'm using that word again, balance. I shouldn't use that. If you're harmonizing all of those things together, like if you're practicing that integrity or that harmony that we're all looking for. I mean, when we're parents or when we're in work, we're doing all of the same things. So we're practicing those same values. We're staying authentic to ourselves. So that's, if we're trying to be two different people at home, at work, we might not have that alignment. And maybe that gets back to what you were talking about with regard to trying to go down a career path that maybe wasn't, maybe you're doing because it was expected of you instead of because it was something that was aligned with your values. That's hugely powerful. Yeah.
Well, and let's think about sports for a second, right? Because I feel like every quarter, no matter where you're at, you've got some sort of sports championship, right? And the championship is a culmination of months and months and months of playing games. And those games are a culmination of hours upon hours upon hours of practice, right? And any top performer in any sport played anywhere around the world, you can't tell me that any of those athletes don't experience burnout. Mm-hmm. But they are living at the peak of what is possible from your physicality, right?
Right.
And these guys are facing mental challenges, physical challenges, trying to figure out how to manage school or friends or family or work and training and health. And I don't think we were ever meant to be in perfect balance. I think we were always meant to be in a period of growth. And I don't see balance and growth being complementary to each other. I think you have brief moments of balance, but if you're in pursuit of a specific goal, like you're busting your butt regularly and making choices that are in alignment with what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, that's and I've heard too that I mean, if you think about trying to balance on one of those like I don't remember what they're called, tension lines between the two trees, right?
Yeah,
it takes so much energy to try and balance on that. I mean, think about the energy that it requires to find balance. So yeah, I mean, I think that the idea of balance is kind of you're right. It's a there's no such thing. We were sold a bill of goods on that, as you said. So when you mentioned too in that section that failure is not an option, and I was hoping you could expand on that, kind of share what you mean by that.
Yeah. So from my perspective, let's pretend AppIt failed. Let's pretend I just totally biffed it, which, maybe could happen. It's not likely. But if AppIt failed and went out of business, I lose 85 teammates that I have spent years building relationships with, coaching up to be fulfilled people, right? That are also in pursuit of excellence. I have 6 international teams. I mean, for that to go away, it would feel like such an immense waste of potential and also future impact. The way that we serve our clients, we're not screwing around, right? And I think if we left that void, there would be suffering that I just couldn't absorb, right? I think I would take that pretty hard. So failing at AppIt is not an option because the stakes are high, because there are a lot of people that depend on us, not only on our team, but for our clients and the positive impact we're working to leave in our communities, right? So I can't let that go. I just won't. Sure. And then failure for my family, not an option. It's just not, because then what? Where does my husband go? Where do my kids go? How do they, start moving through their life if we fall apart? I mean, it's not an option, because the flip side is terrifying. And so, I think that for me, where I can flex, unfortunately, I'll own this. I am not great at taking care of myself, and I can see the impact that has. But I also pour everything I have into the things where failure can't happen, right? And so I'm sure I'll be paying the cost of not taking care of myself down the line, but I can pay that cost when I'm more comfortable that my family and my business and my community is okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great answer. I appreciate that, because I hear a lot, we hear a lot of conflicting views on failure. And I think context matters, because there's a lot of people that will say, well, I failed my way to the top, or I failed upward, and that kind of thing. And, failure in that context is always more of like, well, I've experienced setbacks, but I've persevered and I've gone through it and I've grown from it. But in this case, I mean, when we're looking at something like a catastrophic failure where the stakes are high, I mean, that's the thing that we don't, where, we almost want to persevere through the setbacks so that we don't fail for the big thing, right? I mean, am I understanding that right?
Very much so. I think the whole persevering through a setback it's no different than I made a mistake, right? I screwed up. And I screwed up because I was trying, or I screwed up because I was learning. And that's where the growth comes from. That's not failure. That's just making a mistake. It's a lot different, right? Like failure is in totality and in a sense, removing the safety net that you provide for the people in your life. And that's why I say failure is not an option, because if what I bring to my team and my family goes away, the void there is pretty dang scary. And that's why I say it's not an option. And I think that's what powers me through my moments of self-doubt and powers me through burnout and gives me the motivation I need when I'm pretty tired. So.
Yeah. No, that's really great, because, I think it's important for people to define where the stakes are high in their life. Where if that's the case, know where the stakes are high and highest for you, then where failure is not an option, and maybe that's the best way to prioritize. And what other tools do you use to help address burnout? Because that's an issue for me too, and I know it's an issue for a lot of people.
Yeah. So lately, and we talked a little bit about this too, Adam, where I really seek out inspiration from very specific people that teach me a better way of doing things, or a more modern way of doing things, or a different viewpoint. And so I am very, very particular about where I spend my attention, right? And so there's a workout app that I absolutely love, that I follow their workouts and their diet routines. It's built for women. So I love that space. And then I listen to very specific podcasts that are addressing the things where I absolutely have to be at my best. And so your podcast is certainly one of them. And
Oh,
there are a few
stop.
others. I'm curious because you've had guests that talk about, how to optimize their performance and how to move past fear. And I remember messaging you saying, I am gripped by fear right now. Like, I am grateful for what you're delivering, because I think what happens is all fear is an indicator of lack of knowledge, right? And so if I'm finding myself in a space of fear, that's my cue to go learn more about whatever it is that has scared me, right? And so education is the antidote to fear in my mind. And so that's how I move past burnout. I also really focus on trying to eat as healthy as possible, not to join the bandwagon of every 40-year-old high performance person that I know. I don't drink alcohol. Every now and then I'll have a drink on the weekend or something like that, but certainly not at night. My body can't handle it right now with what I'm trying to accomplish. And I think at a high level, addressing my burnout is simply reminding myself, you talked about high stakes, what can't be a failure. I call those my glass balls. So we're juggling everything. What are the balls I can drop? What are the ones that are rubber that'll bounce back? What are the ones that are glass and won't? So getting really clear on what are my glass balls and reminding myself that this is why I need to do what I'm going to do. And this is temporary. Everything good and everything bad changes. Nothing stays the same. And essentially moving past my attachment on that.
That's I love that glass balls visual, because that really helps to articulate where that high stakes is. And I remember I don't remember it. Her name's escaping me. I apologize, but the former CEO of Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg. Thank you. Yeah. She had said that when something similar, that when she was faced with those kinds of challenges, it's never permanent, it's never pervasive, and it's never personal. I really love, that's one of the mantras I used so much. So that's really helpful. And as far as what people you follow and for inspiration, what do you mind naming some of those?
Sure. So one of them is Dan Go, which I always laugh because I don't think that I'm his target market. It seems like he really likes working with certainly high performance entrepreneurs, but he has a lot of male followers. So I have my husband follow him too, just because he's got some great stuff. I follow Andrea Fawcett. She is the creator of the Mamele app, and she's the one that that's the app that I follow. And it's Mamele. Her app is it's fantastic. So I really like her stuff for nutrition and fitness. Dan's the same way. I listen to Lewis Howes, The School of Greatness. I feel like a lot of people listen to that. I listen to your podcast, Flow Over Fear. And then for my Stoics out there, Ryan Holiday, I just really like his quick snippets on a different way of thinking. So I really like listening to him. And then a new one, her name is Lauren Zoller, and she talks about essentially somatic healing. And so healing through trauma, the physiology of your trauma. So I really learned a lot from her. And those are kind of my people right now. So
I love it. So you mentioned a couple of apps there, and that's certainly the space that you're in. And I wanted to kind of transition into that, because you've evolved from that salesperson who struggled to talk to CIOs and things like that, and struggled to find your early sales voice, into an amazing salesperson. But not only that, you're now the CEO of one of the largest female-owned technology companies in the world. Can you tell how you got there, and then tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I always joke because everyone's like, "Oh, congratulations on your title," and I'm like, "Yeah, I bought my title." So I purchased majority ownership of AppIt back in 2019, and I'm really glad that I did it. because the way that I've grown the business has been just a true reflection of my mind and my heart and my spirit. And I think the reason why we are so successful is because I have the ability to translate from tech speak to business speak and vice versa. And, building custom apps and custom software, it's really challenging. And the reason why is because the people that are usually coming together to bring an app to life come from such opposite ends of the spectrum of how people's brains work that gap is just ripe for miscommunication. And I just stand in the gap between business owners and leaders and technology creators, right? So developers. And I love it. It's my passion. I also think that tech is a very powerful tool. And I'm ready to see our society start benefiting from the positive sides of using technology in an abundant way and in a service-minded way and in a positive way. And I think we're at a really interesting time where we can start to do that. And I'm ready to start seeing tech yield positive impact instead of sowing division and isolation and frustration. And I'm ready to see us come back together as a society generally.
I think that's an inspirational and optimistic point of view on that. And I'd be curious, how do we go in that direction? How do we get there? Is there a path forward for that?
I do. I think there's a few ways to do that. The first is, before you set out to build an application, rather than getting excited about the technology itself, get excited about the change that it's going to make, right? So I think that's number one. Number two is, so many of our clients get so excited about disrupting an industry, right? And I have found our most successful clients are focused on making small, minor improvements that really allow for everyone's humanity to come out instead of relying on tech to do everything. Just allowing enough optimization to happen where a human can still be a human and technology is still a tool instead of, blowing up something like artificial intelligence to the point where it can do as much as what a human does, but not as good. Our messiness as humans is still probably one of the most precious things that we can bring. It's not all about, optimizing or adding efficiency or disrupting an industry. It can be just little minor changes. And then the last one is my passion, which you know about, is using technology to build community. I am so done with big tech leveraging the things about us. So like our data, right? Like you would always hear big tech talk about monetizing data and like our profile information and what we like and what we interact with and what we share and what we comment on. And yeah, that data is valuable, but it never belonged to big tech. It always belonged to us. And, this is my way of wrangling back a little bit of our privacy, a little bit of our intimacy in community, and, taking back what was always ours. And so that's what we're using tech for right now, is protecting private communities and taking that away from big tech. It never belonged to them anyways. And creating this space for those leaders to do that and to protect their people.
Yeah, that's such a great and very, very much overlooked philosophy, because I mean, and I'm guilty of it, going onto Facebook and going onto these social media platforms or big tech. Shouldn't name names there, but you know what I mean. But the idea is like that when we're putting content out there, we don't, the friends we have, the communities that we're building in those realms are not ours. and that they belong to those companies. Our information, every piece of information that we're putting out there belongs to them. And so what you're doing is, as in building these apps for people, these custom apps, is creating a place where those businesses, those individuals, those organizations, those nonprofits can own their data, can own their stuff, can take control of it. And that's such a powerful mission. Not a mission that a lot of people are on. So kudos to you for that. It's huge.
Thank you. Yeah. It's if I can find a way to make it easier for two strangers with totally opposite viewpoints to sit down over a cup of coffee and hear each other out and walk away with the same level of respect that they had, if not more than when they first came together, then I've done my work, right? Mm-hmm. And if I found a way to shepherd enough people into safe and truthful and protected communities, then I've done my work. And ask me in a couple months how I'm doing, because right now, what we're seeing with our clients and how they're serving their communities, it brings me to tears, the impact that we've had. And I want to see that continue to ripple out. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, one thing I also heard you mention there too, which was really, really important, I'm glad you brought it up, was the idea that because AI is coming in and I think some people would argue that that's disrupting the technology industry. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's, I know everybody's kind of latching onto it now. And yes, I use it too to build some things in my own life. But I think one of the things that secretly is a little scary is the fact that we are kind of dehumanizing some of that connection. I mean, if we're going to be marketed to by AI, if we're going to be talked to or sold to by AI, we're losing that humanity. So I'm glad you brought that up, to the idea that you're still finding that middle ground, where it's not about these massive disruptions, but these small improvements that are made that keep us human.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I can build an app that helps some employee that manages, 100 different spreadsheets and is trying to deliver data to decision makers in their business, and I can build a tool that saves him an hour so he can spend more time with his daughter, then I've done my work, right? If I can build a piece of technology that helps somebody learn in the way that they need to learn, right? So whether that's through video or podcast or an article, right? And it's within an app that's delivered by a credible source that has dedicated their life to improving their customers, then I've done my work, right? And so I think on the AI side, as AI progresses, AI has been around for at least a decade, at least as far as I'm concerned, right?
Right.
And as AI progresses, I'm starting to realize more and more what matters more than anything, at least in the world of tech, is my attention, right? So attention is the new currency. And the way that I really try to elevate the brands and the thought leaders and the businesses that are making positive change is that's who I pay attention to. And I'm even more protective of where my mind goes, because where my mind goes, so does my heart. And being very careful about what I let into my attention, into my conscious, and how I'm spending my time. But I will say this, as an optimist, AI will never replace what makes us human. A machine, as I see it today, does not have creativity. A machine doesn't feel feelings. A machine doesn't understand the concept of abundance, even though they could explain it perfectly, right? And anybody who's compared like their profile pictures or their just normal pictures to the AI generated shots, I should actually post one that's like real me versus AI me. And it's soothed me in a way, because my imperfection is what makes me human, and my humanity is what makes me valuable. And no machine can ever replace that.
Yeah, I read recently this description that they used to use, I guess, in video games, where they made human likeness, and they called it uncanny valley. I don't know if you've heard of that, but that's kind of how I feel when I look at those AI generated things, because it's just not quite human. The soul's not there. It's just not there yet.
There.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Also,
Yeah.
I'm annoyed that AI wanted to put a dimple in my chin. I'm like, I don't need that. I don't have that. I don't know why this computer thinks I need to have a dimple in my chin, but
Right.
okay.
Just one more thing to make us feel self-conscious about ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I completely agree with you. And I hope that, I'm optimistic that no amount of technology is going to take away the humanity of what we are. But just in case, I'm saying please and thank you to Alexa.
Yeah.
Just in case that Judgment Day thing happens, So,
Yeah.
well, before I want to be respectful of your time, but I also wanted to I just wanted to step back for a moment and, go back to that decision point to buy AppIt, to buy this company, because we did kind of gloss over that a bit, and I wanted to kind of get into what the decision making process was there, about like where did you come from? What was the decision to buy that? And what kind of feelings were you feeling at that point?
Oh my goodness. So I actually have never really shared this with anyone outside of my close circle. I bought AppIt purely because I had to do it at the time, right? So I wanted to take out a line of credit to hire a once in a lifetime employee to help my team, right? And so any small business owner will tell you, oh my gosh, get the line of credit, right? You need that. Right. And I needed to do that at the time to bring her on. And so in the moment, it wasn't a decision like long-term, like, oh, I set out on this and this is the goal I want to accomplish. It was more like, well, I need to hire this employee and I need a line of credit to do it. And I have to be majority shareholder to do that. So I guess this is what we do now. And I share that because not every entrepreneurial journey starts on purpose. Many entrepreneurial journeys start on accident, and that's okay. And so that's how it came to be with AppIt. Another thing too, I didn't do any due diligence at all. I just kind of knee-jerk reaction, pulled the trigger, and now here we are. And I'm not advocating for that. That's not a recommendation that I would make to entrepreneurs in general. But I will say this, when you're called to do something, you're called to do something, right? It's almost like a recognition of, oh, here's my path. And that's how it felt for me. So while I didn't actively seek out companies to buy and I ran my due diligence, and this is how I ended up getting here, and everything was smooth along the way, that couldn't be further from the truth. It was simply, I did what had to be done in the moment. And even back then, Adam, I still had that sense that failure is not an option. And I genuinely believe when you are called to do something, it's for a reason. And I have said to entrepreneurs, listen, if you have a desire, you have what you need inside of you to accomplish that desire. And in fact, it's your duty to pursue that, because in the pursuit, not only do you change yourself for the better, but you bring along all of these people with you. And that's back to kind of maybe full circle from the beginning, is your impact magnifies. And I had a picture on my desk for the longest time. It was a picture of this lion with this like gorgeous mane looking down at a lion cub. And the quote was, I thought about giving up until I noticed who was watching. And, for parents, I think that resonates, but for adults and for leaders and for managers, people are watching. The generation younger than you and 2 generations younger than you need you to succeed. And they need to see proof that it's possible. And maybe it's because I'm 40 and whatever, I'm getting older and all that, but I want more people my age to recognize their responsibility to show our younger generations that it is possible to be generous and successful. It is possible to pursue a goal and be fulfilled, even when it's hard. And it is possible to do hard things, and you are capable. And I think that's my entrepreneur story is, no, I didn't buy AppIt on purpose. I didn't do all the right stuff. I followed a calling, and I wouldn't have it any other way, to be honest.
That is such a great mic drop moment to end this episode, Amanda. No, it was so good. So good. And I think people need to hear that, especially when they're, getting back to that perfection thing we talked about. I think people are looking for the perfect time, the perfect opportunity, the perfect this or the perfect that. If it's your calling, if it's in your heart, if it's in your desire, pursue it and pursue it all in. And I love your attitude and perspective on that. And I believe it's why you've been so successful on this. And I wish you continued success on it. If anyone listening wants to go to AppIt Ventures or get a hold of you, where can they find you?
Listen, I'm trying to do the Instagram thing. I'm so bad at it, but you guys can find me on Instagram, Amanda Moriuchi. Email me. I'm really good at email. My email's amanda@appitventures.com. And then you can check us out, some of our work on our website, just at appitventures.com.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Please check out Amanda. She is doing amazing things in the world for people. She is practicing what she preaches. She's proving that it's possible to be generous and successful. And she is an abundance of both. And she's just an amazing person. I'm really, really glad I got to know you, Amanda. And I look forward to many conversations to come. And thank you. And to those of you and to everyone else listening out there, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Flow Over Fear podcast. If you'd like to learn more about getting into flow and learn the foundations of flow, I have a free video series on my website at www.adamcliffordhill.com called The Foundations of Flow. Feel free to go there and download it and start your journey to rising above fear and achieving greater flow in your life. And if you like this episode, and I'm guessing you did if you stuck around for this long, then please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, and you will receive notifications when I have new interviews, new recaps, and new trainings that pop up on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us.